Hello, 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 everyone. This is Tiffany with the Earn Your Wings, Speak Up and Inspire series. We are sorry that we are late. It is all on me, had some internet issues. And so we are here right now. And we want to just jump into the conversation because this is a conversation that we are starting, and it is going to start taking place on a monthly basis. And the purpose of these community conversations is for us to talk about what are the crimes that are prevalent or that are active on the tour. That's number one. We're going to identify that, what we're going to be addressing on the tour. Secondly, we're going to be talking about a little bit of our stories. We'll be sharing those. And then we're also going to start putting together the resources and services that worked for victims when they were going through their crisis, and then what barriers were there and what was needed for the individuals here that are sharing with us today. This is a really important conversation because the whole point and the whole mission of the Earn Your Wings tour is for us to amplify the voices of survivors, but also for us to be able to develop some programs, some systems, and hopefully share these ideas and these suggestions and these resources with the states that are involved in the tour, but then also partner with other organizations throughout the US that can partner with us to help us to make the healing journey for victims go smoother. And that way, victims have what they need in order for them to be able to start their healing. Myself, as a victim of domestic violence and sexual assault, I did have some supports, but I also had some concerns when I went to the police. It was traumatic, sharing my story with the police because of all the questions they were asking. And so those are the kinds of things that we want to avoid. We want to be able to help victims to not be re-traumatized during the process, whether it's reporting to the police, whether it's in therapy, whether it's, when they get into court. We don't want for victims to be traumatized again on top of whatever situation it was that occurred to them. And so, especially for those who have lost loved ones that are no longer here, and we're having to fight for their rights. And there's just so many barriers out there, and there's so many things that are out there in the community on a local, county, state, and national level that needs to change. And hopefully the organizations that are represented here today, we're going to be starting those conversations. We're going to be taking notes, and we are going to be submitting these things to our individual states to say to them from a survivor perspective, these are the things that have worked. These are the things that were not available to me. And these were some of the concerns or the issues or the barriers that were there for me on my journey. And so this is what I'm saying to you as elected officials, as government agencies, from a survivor view, what works? What works? You can't, if anyone is familiar with clinical peer support, it has been proven that those that have experienced things are some of the best to be able to help people through their journey. And so that is our whole motivation, our whole dedication is as survivors to be able to share our journey so that we can help other people. So that being said, sharing the mission of the Earn Your Wings tour, we are going to hear and get to know everybody that is on the panel this evening. They have taken time out to be able to share their stories, to share their vision, and to share their perspective on how to help victims on their healing journey so that they do not have to be re-traumatized and they don't have to go through additional stress and additional trauma and crisis. So that being said, we are going to get started. I'm just going to go in order of who I can see on the screen. So please, when I call you, please introduce yourself, give us that elevator speech, tell us who you are, tell us about your organization, and then tag someone else for them to introduce themselves. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the North Carolina lead, Miss Emerald. Miss Emerald, please introduce yourself and your affiliation on the tour.
Hi, everybody. Everyone can hear me, correct?
Yes.
Hi. I'm Aaliyah. My stage name is The Emerald. I am a North Carolina creative. My passion is acting. Right now, I do work in the finance industry, the insurance industry. So that is what I do part-time. I am a two-time survivor of domestic violence, and other traumas that this tour is focusing on helping survivors and survivor advocates learn not to again re-traumatize themselves through. And a lot of my focus, mainly my growing, came from mental health and being around a therapist. I like to point that out. And although I know in certain fields, everybody is not versed like a licensed clinician. However, I do think that some of the training is basic when it comes to the human psychology. And I don't always think that when a survivor is actually in the midst of a traumatic situation that there's enough training for more or less law enforcement at times to implement when they're responding to some of these in the moment trauma things. So with that, I just like to point out me relearning my own mental health. I know that everybody's not where they are on their mental health journey, which is why I'm a part of this tour, because sometimes it takes somebody else looking from the outside, looking into your situation, to be able to help you see what you need to see within yourself. But it is a process, and not a lot of people are versed. So my affiliation with this tour is to help other people who needed the resources that I kind of had to navigate myself through the find, not only getting with like-minded individuals like Tiffany, but doing my own soul search. And I'm hoping that maybe the next person doesn't have it as hard as I did, because some of the realities of going through traumatic situations, and when you do finally start to tell people and talk about it, some of the stigma that you get as a survivor or survivor advocate, even from the people who are supposed to help you and the people who are able to help you, is not the best feeling. So I just want to make sure I'm here to advocate for the other mothers, other survivors out there who can help. Can't hear you.
Yeah.
Sorry. Thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing and sharing your purpose. Miss Emerald, I met her at an event for domestic violence survivors, and was just in awe of her and her passion and her talent. And so I wanted to connect with her afterwards, and she's just been a blessing to the tour. So thank you so much, Miss Emerald.
Thank you. I'm going to tag, is today the birthday girl, Miss Stitt? I'm going to tag Miss Stitt to go next. I'm going to give you the honors, and happy birthday again.
Thank you. And today is my birthday. Whoop, whoop. And but even with a birthday celebration, there are events that we need to be connected to. We can't let some things keep us out of the realm of how we can still continue to have an impact and an influence and let our voice be heard. So it was really important for me in the midst of my birthday celebration to take just a little bit of time to come in to this conversation, because it's really important. It's really very close to my heart, my life, and the work that we do. So thank you for the birthday wishes. Yes, Sylvia Stitt Smith, and the organization that I am associated with, executive director, is the Sam Stitt Foundation. And the foundation was established after the death of our youngest son, Sam, at the age of 23 due to gun violence. And so, Tiffany, you hit it on the head. Emerald, you hit it on the head as well, as you guys were talking about some of the things and just laying out high level a lot of the areas that survivors, have issue in, and where survivors need help in. One of the things that I like to think about is that when we're talking about survivors, for me, whatever those areas are, I feel like very strongly that it falls into one of three categories. Survivors need a way of expression, survivors need empathy, and then survivors also need empowerment. And so whether we're talking about expression, whether it's grief therapies, counseling, those types of things, that's an expression area for me. And certainly we need individuals that we're talking to who look like us and who are culturally informed to be able to engage, with survivors in those ways, that for the neighborhoods that they're coming out of and the situations that they're coming out of. Certainly, then there's the empathy piece for that. You know, as you were talking about peer support, as you're talking about supports from other areas and community-based organizations, we need people to be able to understand what this trauma looks like and be able to then be able to speak the language that helps toward that healing process. And certainly empowerment, as we're able to then use our voices in the ways that we are on this platform tonight and in the work that others might be doing in the community to be able to make things better, not only for our households, but also for the other households that have been impacted by violence. There's some other things that we also are engaged in with the foundation. We offer grief support in terms of a grief support group that we do a couple times a month, the second and the fourth Thursday of the month. We work with youth because we understand that you have to catch them young in order to make the positive impacts and inroads into the things that our youth are impacted by. We also work at the college level and with corporations also. So it's multifaceted because the things that our communities need are multifaceted. Tiffany, I don't know if this is a good time, just to talk about some of the things that we'd like to do in terms of empowerment. I imagine that we'll come back, around to some of these conversations. So I won't take a lot of time right now. But the Samuel Harris, the Samstead Foundation certainly is one that looks to engage in collective impact because there's strength in numbers. We're looking to do education and as well as advocacy, as well as survivor support. So those are the things that we're really engaged in. And that also takes a multifaceted look because people's grief journey is different and their healing journey is also different. So, yeah.
We are going to get into, what are some things that people have in place or organizations have in place or are working on to fight the crime that's going on in our communities, to make an impact, to make change. So yes, we definitely will get to that. This did tag somebody to introduce themselves.
I'd like to tag Denier Davis to introduce herself.
Let me see if I can unmute her because it looks like she's trying to unmute. Okay, well, we're waiting for her to come back. Miss Andrea, can you introduce yourself, please? Miss Andrea, I don't know if it's me, but I can't hear you.
Now, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Oh, that happens when you use the mic. I'm Andrea Merriman. I am the founder and visionary of Feminine Life Rebuilders. We work with victims, those that are at risk from their youth up. Our main signature program is the Jennifer Y. Merriman Help Program, which is a program that offers hope, empowerment, life skills, and prevention methods. And I say that it was named after my daughter Jennifer, who was 17 years old when she was murdered by a family member. And one of the things that she wanted to do was always to provide help for teens that were coming from dysfunctional families. And so by doing that, I was instructed by God actually when I was trying to work with teens, and He said, if you want to actually help the families, you need to help the mothers heal because they're the ones teaching the children. So that's basically what I do with our program. So we also have a youth program. I've also taken this program over into Uganda last year. So we are doing it in different areas. And so also training advocates to facilitate the program here in the States. And thank you for allowing me to be here.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Andrea has been very, very, very helpful to me on my healing journey, just helping me look in the mirror and take some accountability for myself and my decisions and, so forth. And then just getting back to loving myself. She helped me start back on that path of getting back to me. So I truly, truly appreciate her. And I'm so honored that you are here today. So we're going to go back to Miss Denier Davis. Can you please introduce yourself?
Hi everybody, I'm Denier. Sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened to my microphone, but I am an artist. I am out of North Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'm with Near Perfection. It is a for-profit organization that I started from art. I used to play basketball. I'm an athlete turned artist. Fell into depression, and from basketball, I found out that I can do art. And so with my artistry, I started healing myself mentally. I was dealing with a lot of mental health things that I learned as through my healing journey, have learned that it came from like poverty, things we deal with in our neighborhoods. And after tackling that, I have been able to, my goal started becoming how can I get into with the youth that look like me, who might not know that art is something that you can make a lot of money off of and that it's not talked about enough. And so I use my art to wiggle my way in with the youth and talk about healing, different avenues that we can do outside of sports and music, because that's all that I saw growing up. And so from there, I'm able to talk about things I've survived, and the kids tend to latch on to that, and they see that, and then they see someone who looks like them, and it helps to get them off the streets and into bigger programs. And with the work I do, I tap into people who need self-healing too as well. So that's what I do. I'm an advocate for healing yourself first so you can heal the world and your community.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know with you, Denier, when I met you, you told me about your father. Would you mind sharing what you witnessed there?
Yes. So interestingly enough, I was working and my mom called me and she was like, "I think your father's been shot." And I was thinking about my dad, because my dad's such a big loving guy that no one could hurt him. Like, he's a teddy bear. And come to find out, these two young men tried to rob my father. And as he was begging for his life, they were standing on top of him. And he was saying, "I have kids and a wife. Please don't, like, pretty much, please don't kill me." And they ended up running away. And so after getting a phone call, we, from there, I realized that, like, anybody is a target to the youth. Like, anybody, if they're searching for money, if they're hungry, if they need a place to stay, they'll do anything when it doesn't matter what it is. And so by the grace of God, my father woke up after 3 days, and so he's still here with us today, even though the bullet is lodged in it pierced his lung. And interestingly, my daddy only has one lung. One of them collapsed, and so the other one grew bigger, so it pierced his lung, and it's lodged in his spine. But he's still here. He lost feeling in his fingers, but I still have my father, and I'm very blessed and grateful for that. And yeah, so that's my mission, to tackle the youth with putting these guns down.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your story. I know that that's hard, and I'm so glad that your dad is still here to be a testimony, and that you're advocating on behalf of stopping gun violence. Thank you so much. Thank you. Would you like to choose someone?
I'm going to choose JT.
Okay.
I was just sitting here thinking to myself, my God, I mean, look at how God moves, and the testimonies that come out just listening to everybody that spoke so far, and my spirit is moved in a special way. I am James JT Thompson, the co-founder of Big Woo Radio. Today, I'm also representing Men on a Mission, which is another nonprofit organization that I'm a part of here in South Carolina, where the motivation is to try to inspire our youth to be better, do better. With everything that's going on, from gun violence to mental health to peer pressure, the whole 9 yards, trauma is alive and well. And being able to speak on it from an up close experience in my family, it's like, if you filled up with it, then you should be able to pour into somebody else and maybe help them navigate through. My sole mission is to not just execute the mission that Tiffany laid out, um, but to continue the momentum and being a part of this team to impact every stop that we have on this tour, and the importance of knowing that every individual that you will hear from and that is bold and brave to, use the power of what God has filled them with to give their testimony. And the one thing I realized, everybody that spoke so far, I know it took something deep in order to, reveal. And I too, in South Carolina, on tour, I'm going to reveal some things that I haven't revealed because I know there's going to be somebody in this panel and somebody in that audience that it will need to hear that. Is going through something. And God has already placed that on my spirit. So the mission for me is to allow God to fill up my vessel. And every time that we speak, every time we do a panel, every time we do a tour stop, and I'm a part of it, the movement of how God moves me is going to manifest in everybody that's in their audience. And I pray that over every stop on tour, that it manifests itself and it helps spread love and healing, which is what we're focusing in on, especially on May 15th in Rock Hill, South Carolina, when we kick off the South Carolina leg. I promise you, the way that you come in that night to the fellowship hall, you will not leave the same, because we are made to go through things, and some of us go through things that we didn't ask for, but we went through it for a reason, and God brought us through the storm so that we could be able to help people and reach back in. And so we are the olive branch of the tree, and we're gonna help love and love on each other. And it's something different, it's something special, and I admire everybody on this panel and everybody that's on these teams and in these states, because what we're doing is going to hit different because God gave us something different. Each of us got a testimony, and on this tour is going to shine out and be bright and be what it's supposed to be. And we're going to help the healing process, and we're going to pour the love that God poured into us, and we're going to pour it out in every state. And somebody's going to tap somebody, tell somebody, and it's going to be poured out all over the world.
Amen.
Earn Your Wings tour. You do not want to miss this. North Carolina, you up, and I already feel it. I already feel it. And I thank God for all of y'all that's working hard in North Carolina. My brothers are going to be live. Trisso, MTV, that's part of my fam. They're going to be live in some of the North Carolina events, but I'm telling you what, God is ever present, and He's present. He's going to stand up and show out. And I guarantee you, when we get through with this, tour ain't just going to be 8 states. It ain't even going to be 50 states. It's going to be worldwide.
Yes.
God already done spoken.
Thank you, JT. You up right after us.
Yeah, speak it into existence. Speak it into existence. I love it. All right, tag somebody for intros.
I can't see any names. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, I can do it. Let's see, Miss Martha. Miss Martha.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Because my service acting bad too on the day. But hello, everyone. My name is Martha Young. I'm the team lead for Texas. And I have an organization that's called I Am Not Broken. And the reason why that my organization is called I'm Not Broken is because I'm a survivor of domestic. And when I first started working on my organization, it was only dealing with domestic abuse. But as I was going with it, God started stretching me wide on this organization. So I started dealing with youth. My organization started dealing with people who's going in depression, and all this stuff that I know that I was dealing with is what I have done with in the past. So as you know, I'm a survivor domestic. I'm an author. Also, I like to talk about me going through losing a child at the age of 10 to cancer. So I tie all this into my organization because we have people that's out there that know they're hurting and they don't have the resources. And when I was going through my abusive relationship, I mean, I could tell you that I went back to my ex-husband 20 plus times. And I didn't know why that I had to be so connected to him. But as I learned, as time went on, you know, and me going through the darkness that I was going through, you know, it was because of the fact that, you know, I felt like that no one would love me the way that he loved me. And it took a lot for me to break away from that. And during that time, like I said, I had lost a child. And so I went into depression. I was stressed. I lost my hair because it was coming out in clumps. I wanted to commit suicide. Amongst other things, I had no purpose that I wanted to be here anymore. And so me coming out with I'm Not Broken was to show that I'm still here. Even though that I went through all this, I'm still here. It didn't break me. Even though I wanted to give up, I had to look at, I still had other kids that I had to raise. And by me being in that abusive relationship, I thought it was going to rub off on them. And I can tell you that even though that I stayed with him or whatever, and after I left him, I still was trying to come back because I felt like that I was not worthy. I felt like that that he was the only one that was going to lift me. I didn't want to start over, and that's one of the biggest things that I didn't want to start over. So when I'm Not Broken, is just showing that you don't have to be scared to start over. You can start over. The reason why I went into my legal identity business because we have attorneys that help you to start over, help you get out of the situation. So I'm Not Broken. It's like resources of a whole lot of stuff. So what I'm expected on this tour is that I can reach other people that's going, not just women, but men, not just women, men, but a teenager, kids too, because they go through depression, they go through the struggles as well. So God, I'm grateful that God stretched this organization out that I'm able to help not only just the adults, I can help out the kids too. So I'm grateful to be on this tour, and I know that God's gonna do some wonderful things for this.
Yes, he already is, because he's brought all of us together with a shared mission and purpose. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. Miss Alyssa, can you please introduce yourself, beautiful lady?
Hello. My name is Elissa Boudreau. I am with Lotus Worldwide Consulting, LLC. We are a comprehensive, consulting service. So we do a plethora of things, but my main focus is domestic violence, self-love. I am a 24-year victim, 10-year survivor, 7-year overcomer of domestic violence. So I've been self-love journey for 7 years now. I started at the age of 14. It really probably never ended, but I ended, the last hit was in, I was about 38 years old, pregnant. My ex-husband had a mental breakdown in my 3rd month of pregnancy. I have 2 daughters, 30 and 16. My 16-year-old is a product of me leaving and finding out I'm pregnant at the same time. But I look back, I can say that I went through a lot. I've been homeless many times, but I kept on going. I went back to school, got my education. After military, I am a 2-time war veteran, serving in Desert Storm and in Iraqi Freedom.
Wow.
So I have been left for dead. I've lost 3 babies to domestic violence. I have lost houses. I've lost cars. I've put out of prominent neighborhoods because police kept coming to. I I was almost put out of the military behind my ex-husband's negligence and things that I allowed because I was a victim and I was fearful of him. I allowed a lot of things to happen on base and other places, trying to shield him from getting in trouble for the things he was doing to me. Retired from the military due to some issues that I was dealing with him, and my commander, who is probably my lifesaver, she knew who I was, and she knew that my career could be tarnished, and she gave me the opportunity to go to the medical board, which I had all of my paperwork, and so they medically retired me from the military. I've been medically retired 7. Um, and so I can say that my company, Lotus Worldwide, was built out of all of the things that I've gone through in my lifetime. I had Exposed Domestic Violence Organization first. It was a nonprofit organization, and then I got it, like, hit the ground running after I left, but I was broken. And I kind of put it down for a little while, went back to it, but it's hard to maintain when you don't have the finances and you can't keep it up. So that's how Lotus Worldwide came about. I began this for-profit business, which is Lotus Worldwide, and we service a plethora of people from perpetrators on up to the victims. How we do that is I have contracts through different. I work with one company, which is the Defendants Assistance Program in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and they service like a couple of the judicial systems here in the area. And so their name is on the list for educators. I am, by the way, an educator of domestic violence. I'm a pre-interventionist of domestic violence. I also coach, confidence coach, and also my whole life. I have 3 degrees with my master's in psychology, non-clinical. And I speak, host, and I am now an author. I've been an author for a while, but now I'm coming out with my authorship, as you want to call it. And I have written since September, and I say this, I was on a download, and if any of you all know, suppression is real when you go through domestic violence. Just try to shield everything. And so I've been on a download since September, and I've written over 20 books. Since September, I have my book, a 3-part system, which is all together. I have that book. I have those 3 books. I have a child's book. And coming out in a little while, I will have a domestic violence book called Forbidden Love, Domestic Violence Out Loud. So I've been working on a lot of things lately and on myself, because throughout this journey and everything that I've gone through, being a 24-year survivor, I went through a lot of grief, and a grief journey of losing people who were there for me when I was going through stuff. My parents lost both my parents. And I went through this deep, dark depression. And upon going through the deep, dark depression of losing them, found myself in a health battle. I was a size 22. I am now a size 4, and I was down to a size 00, weighing 98 pounds. Last year, they gave me up, and that's when I began writing. So I kind of have a plethora of things. My ex-husband, I lost him to a fentanyl overdose, which is my children's father, with my last perpetrator. And he was also an abused child. Lost my mom very tragically in a bad illness that went wrong at the end. And I had to fight for my life in the process of that. It's been a year now that I'm up and healthy and whole and thinking straight. And so, as I said, I work with both perpetrators, children, the mothers, perpetrators on the education side, and I try to help them to understand that their mistakes can be forgiven if they move forward from them. And so I teach from love, then experience, and then education. And that's how I kind of grasp their hearts and kind of work with my perpetrators, because if we don't fix the perpetrators, we'll continue to have victims. Don't ask don't ask why they keep going back. Just ask what you can do to help. That's all.
Right, right. I love that. I love that. And I love that you are educating perpetrators. I didn't understand that a few years ago, and actually lost a good friend because I was just like, why are you working with perpetrators when they're the ones that we're out here fighting against? So I'm glad that you are doing that, because you're right. If we don't help those that are committing the crimes and that are the abusers, then it's going to continue. So thank you so much for doing that work, because that's tough. And so many other things that you're doing. Like you said, you have a lot that you are doing. You're a veteran, you're a survivor, you're a mother, so many things. So thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. I'm gonna move us along. So I'm going to go to Miss Alicia. We're gonna let's cut down a little bit on introductions so that we can get into the meat. So Miss Alicia, can you please introduce yourself?
Greetings, 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 my beautiful friends. It's me, Alicia, also known as Coach Lee. I'm a self-love coach, holistic practitioner. I am also an overcomer of domestic violence, sexual assault, and what I do is I work with individuals that overcame the trauma to help them relearn to love themselves again. Because when you're a victim, you've been so in a space of victimized and people pleasing that you forget to please yourself, you forget to love on you. So I really help individuals to love themselves again, wholeheartedly, inside out. And by doing that, you have to revisit some tough stuff. So it's like I help them and guide them and assist them on going back to the root of where it all stemmed from, and relearning to nurture and love yourself from that aspect. And with that, oh, I forgot to add that I'm the team leader for Louisiana as well. And it's like with that, when you yes, when I heard that you said something about Baton Rouge, I was like, back with you. So yes, and it's like when you get in that space of learning how to love yourself, it's just so heart feeling. And what God put on me is because since I grew up in an abusive household. I watched my mom get abused. I watched my aunt get abused, and then I was in multiple abusive relationships, was sexual assaulted more than one time, and I did not love myself. When I heard Martha say something about wanting to commit suicide, I was that person as well. I just was like, why am I still here? I don't want to live no more. It's just too much for me to bury, too much for me to carry. And God said, because you have to go through this, because there's so many people you have to help. You have to show them how to love themselves throughout all of the pain that they're going through. You have to guide them on this journey and take them back to light, let their light shine again. So I'm all about reigniting that light that's within inside of you that God put out because of you going through those experiences that shaped you. And just knowing that these experiences really, even though we had to go through it to help others, but it really gave us the strength. It really gave power, and it's really all about getting our power all the way back and turn our light back on to shine. Thank y'all.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And last but not least, Miss Satoria, can you please introduce yourself?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So I want to just say good evening, everyone, and thank you, Tiffany, for this opportunity to be here. I want to thank all of you as speakers for sharing your stories. I was not here. Well, I was on the screen, but not on the screen because honestly, like all of you guys made me cry. This is very sensitive for me because a lot of you are past survivors and have been through it, but I am currently surviving. And I'm currently going through it right now. Like I literally came from court today, and then I have court again tomorrow. So this is all very sensitive for me. So I wrote out what I'm going to say because it's very sensitive for me. So my name is Satoria. I'm a mother, a student pursuing my degree in social work, a sound healer, a community advocate, and my business is Love You Louder. I started Love You Louder because I did not love myself. I started Love You Louder because I had been in many domestic relationships and I thought that I had done all of the proper healing. However, this last relationship showed me that I was not done healing at all and that God needed me to grow through what I was going through to be able to further my mission with Love You Louder, because that came from God also. So I've learned that survival doesn't stop when the violence does. It continues in the courtrooms, in custody hearings, and emergency rooms, on waiting lists for therapy, and navigating systems that often re-traumatize us more than they support us. Right now, I am representing myself pro se in multiple legal cases. I've had to sue for my own belongings after being locked out of my marital home. I am preparing for a custody case currently involving my young children. I've had to document and defend myself against false accusations while my children have been emotionally impacted by the system that is meant to protect us. And I'm not alone in this. You've all shared your stories. Across the country, survivors, especially Black women, single mothers, neurodivergent adults, which I am neurodivergent, and people from marginalized communities are navigating the aftermath of abuse in systems that often fail to see the full picture of what survival looks like. So for me, I feel like we need to talk about how abusers can weaponize the court system to continue control. I feel like we need to talk about how protective orders, custody agreements, and even co-parenting platforms can be used to monitor, silence, and even intimidate survivors long after the abuse ends. And I'm almost done. We need trauma-informed approaches in every sector: law enforcement, legal aid, healthcare, education. And we need wraparound support, not just a hotline or a shelter, but stable housing, child therapy, and legal representation, healing spaces, and opportunities for survivors to thrive, not just survive, as I am currently doing. And I've literally been doing this for a whole year right now. And finally, I want to say that we can't keep creating programs for survivors without including us in the process. We need survivors at the table, not just as guests, but as decision makers, consultants, and paid professionals. Lived experience is expertise, and until survivors are empowered as leaders, we will keep missing the mark. I have stayed in many domestic violence shelters just in this past year where I was failed. Me and my children had to stay in hotel rooms with bed bugs. I was talked down to by people in the shelter that were running the shelter, treating me poorly because they were misjudging me. I am a substance abuse counselor. I'm a peer support specialist. I now work at my child's daycare. I do so many different things in the community and I help people, but I'm being failed and I'm seeing where we're failing. I'm seeing where the money is being misused because I'm currently going through it and it really hurts. And like even today, my abuser filed petty larceny charges on me, and I was charged with it. Even though we're not divorced yet, even though like it was so much more evidence, but because the judge was only hearing that part of it, we had to stick to the legality. So the system was able to be used to abuse me. And then directly after court today, my abuser went to my place of employment. And I still have to go file a harassment charge after I get off of this live because I am currently dealing with it right now. However, as the birthday girl said, happy birthday. You cannot allow things to stop you from being on such powerful platforms when you need to share your story and people need to see what it really looks like to be a survivor in the moment. I have advocated, I have found grants that don't even exist in the state of Virginia. I have been able to secure my own place. I stay in a really nice townhome in Virginia Beach. I was able to secure that on my own with bad credit, so, don't count yourself out. It's not always going to be a community resource that help you. It's going to be your faith. It's going to be your trust in God. It's going to be your resilience. It's going to be you keeping your mental together. I heard someone say, and I'm sorry to get emotional, but mental health, going to see your therapist during this time is so important. Don't push that off because your mental is what's going to get attacked. And that's what you're going to need to get through these court systems and to navigate and to find yourself resources because it is an emotional situation and it does affect the children. And when you're being abused and your abuser is not thinking about the children, that impacts you in so many ways as well. So I fought to find my children a therapist. I was on waiting list for CHKD. I went to the community service boards. They couldn't help. So I had to dig and dig and dig until I was finally able to find my children a therapist. She's amazing. And I'm able to give my children the coping skills and, being able to just build them up during this time. So, I just want to say thank you, Tiffany. And I know we're going to get into more things, but if you are currently going through this, don't give up. There are people out there that care about you, and it's not always going to be a community resource, but it's also going to be you not giving up on yourself, and you have to be strong.
Yes, 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 yes. You said so many powerful things. And I am so proud of you for being in your crisis still and wanting to speak up and doing what you need to do for yourself, because there are things that you need that are not available, or there are resources there that you're not being offered, and so forth. So that is what we're all, this is what this is all about right now. So let's start with what is working. So, as a victim of, I know, gun violence for Denier and Miss Sylvia, I'm going to talk to you all first. What worked after you found out that your father was shot? What helped, Miss Stitt, when you found out, you got that phone call about your son? What helped immediately after for you?
I'm gonna say for me, immediately, I couldn't recognize what worked because I was surrounded by that. So it was kind of like in the moments it happening to my dad. I guess I processing it. And then later I was like, well, we got to start reading the Bible. We got to get closer to God. We need to, we need to figure out how we can grow closer to God, because you got a second chance. And then I will also say therapy, and just being able to process what I was trying to figure out and tap into what I was feeling and what that looked like, and process this whole entire situation, because it was shocking, but it's also something that, like, you see, so it's kind of like you're desensitized, but you're going through it, if that makes sense. And so immediately, I can't say immediately what worked, but going and seeing him in the hospital all the time, bringing the Bible, like I would run up to the hospital and we would read the Bible, because immediately when he got shot, he couldn't write, so he wrote me a note, and he was like, he couldn't believe he was alive. I know you got my back. And so for me, immediately, that was something that gave me the strength to be like, I got my dad's back. I gotta be strong. I gotta do what it takes. So I kind of couldn't think about the thing that happened, because I got this note that he's trusting that I'm gonna have his back. So I will say that for me personally worked. And then just like being able to talk about it and having people be like, they got my back, and just therapy and working through what I saw and what was going on.
Yes, yes, yes. That is very powerful. And I'm so glad he was able to tell you that, so that was able to give you the courage to move forward with him. Okay. Miss Sylvia, so after you got the phone call about your son, and I do not mean to harbor on that, but after that moment, what in the next couple of weeks or months was helpful for you in what you received? So we're starting with what you had at your disposal at that time. What was helpful for you and your family?
At the time that we got the phone call, it was 8:45 p.m. on a Thursday night. And my first thought was, Sam was the youngest of 4 siblings. So my first thought was family, and the strength that I was going to need to be able to let folks know what had happened without really letting them know in that moment what had happened. So we were making phone calls to siblings that, your brother's gotten hurt. This is where he got hurt, and we're on our way to go see about him. Even though the message that I had received at the time, I already knew of my youngest son's demise. So the biggest thing, just from a personal internal aspect, was strength, thinking about the rest of the family that needed to be notified and needed to get there. And certainly my faith in God has been my biggest foundation of what helped. Having a really good support system was extremely helpful and useful to me in my journey in those initial weeks right after that happened. One of the other things, ironically, that made a really big difference in my situation is that prior to Sam's murder, our family, myself and Sam's father, had been involved in community violence intervention and prevention initiatives before that. And personally, I had been involved in training with ACEs, trauma informed, and had been working in that realm. Had already been working with kids in the school system to give them experiences in STEM, experiential experiences. So I was already doing some of that community outreach type work. And so when this happened with Sam, I knew that being able to forgive that individual, it was a 14-year-old that pulled the trigger in my son's case. And so being able to forgive that individual, I think was a direct result of having some understanding of the things that people go through can help to inform or help to influence decisions and things that they make. I don't mean to say that there's no accountability that should be lessened, but just certainly a better understanding of how these things happen. And so from a personal standpoint, it was faith, it was my strength, it was my need to be able to protect my family and get them through this process. These things happen, and a lot of times we go numb because we have to get through what we got to get through in order to get the details and things settled. From a community standpoint, there were a couple of organizations and some people, again, we had already been out working in the community, so we did have some inroads to people who were able to reach out to us very early on in that process and just help us navigate through some of the things that we need to navigate through. Faith in God, inner strength, prior experience with community outreach, and understanding of ACEs and being trauma informed were some of the things that really helped in the beginning of this. And when I say some of the community information that we had was just around how to navigate that crime victims assistance piece of it. Things like that, how to talk about, we had a press conference that next morning after we lost our son. So being able to present, and talk about him in that particular platform, to introduce people to him and not just have him be a statistic was very important, and also having some help from elected officials in the community also to help get that story out and to help people understand what was going on. So just in those first few weeks, those were the main things. It was faith in God, it was inner strength, and then it was help also from our support system, and then also from those in community who had been through this process and could help us navigate some of those initial things we would need to be confronted with.
Yes, thank you for sharing all of those. Thank you. So from a domestic violence standpoint, so James, I want to come back to JT. I want to come back to you. Have you personally been a victim of crime or witnessed crime, or are you more on the advocacy side? Because I want to make sure we address all of the crime that is on the panel.
I stand on both sides. At the age of 6, I had to be the security out the house before she was to be stabbed. And there were multiple domestic disputes that happened in my household that I didn't ask to see and didn't want to be a part of, but I was thrust to be that person in that moment. So in that moment, I had to grow up and become what I needed to be the shield to keep from harm and violence from happening. And the trauma from that is real. The trauma from that is what I speak. Because if you're around it, you become a part of that circle. You become interwoven into all of that. And so as you come to grow up and become an adult, you're constantly trying to break the chains of repeating those cycles. And so that has been a thing, throughout my life. It's like, I don't know why. I didn't know why I had to go through it. But I understand more today as to why. And that's my spot, standing in the gap for a child that is having to witness, something that they don't understand. But they will have to deal with it sometime in their life, whether it's, there afterwards. It is not something that just goes away. And so what a lot of people on the panel touched on today, therapy is a real thing. But I'll tell you what, my God in heaven was covering way before I even understood his coverage over, what was going on. And so, that faith and that strength and an understanding, what, he brought us through these storms for a reason, and we have a voice. And as long as I got breath in my body, being an advocate and knowing both sides of those situations, I will stand in the gap and be a voice and allow God to speak to my vessel, because there is healing to be had and there's love to be held, to be given, because, these situations are not situations that were asked for, but we were put in these situations and, unwillingly. And so you talking about being a strength, the church says it all right now. We're touching in agreement together. We are bonded together, even though we all are in different spaces. Right now, we in this circle right here. And I stand in the gap and I'm reaching out to all my fellow panelists. We are in this together. Having seen it, I can't unsee it. Having gone through it, as far as the eyes of an innocent child and not knowing, just throw my body in as a shield and becoming a situation that I can't forget. So, the legal ramifications of those things, even in that time, the legal part of it only seen one side. And so it didn't deal with the trauma that was left behind. It wouldn't deal with the bruises that were left behind. It didn't deal with, why, mama and daddy keep going through this same cycle and the mental health of it. A lot of guys, a lot of men will not talk about these things. So I'm standing in the gap of this man is going to stand in the gap for those that may not be and, ready to talk about it. We're going to have those conversations, and I'm going to remind that we're in this together. And it's something that, that's been said on tour already before we even hit tour, is hurt has no gender. And it is the truest thing that I've heard, and it continues to resonate. The hurt of going through situations and the hurt that is with you that has to be healed in order for you to move forward. It's a process. And that process is something that I'm not taking lightly. I, listen closely to everybody on this panel, and I feel even more connected because you've been through some things, and all of them kind of connect the dots and bring reasoning as to why all of us are here on this particular personal event, why we are a part of this bigger movement. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
And in the gap of, violence in general, because it's so necessary, and continuing the conversation.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. So from that perspective, how many others, by show of hands, were witness to domestic violence in their home? By show of hands. Okay. So for those who raised their hands and you were a witness to domestic violence in your homes growing up, what was helpful to you as a child, or as, once you had the understanding of what was taking place? What was helpful for you as children going into adulthood, for you to be able to start your healing journey? What kind of resources, or what did your mom or dad or somebody do for you as a child witness to domestic violence that was helpful? If anything. I was about to say, that's sad if there was nothing that helped you, but that's why we're here today. That's why we're here. So yes, Miss Alyssa, tell me, what were you about to say? You're on mute.
Devin, come on. I'm sorry. It took me a long time. I was in domestic violence for 24 years straight, as from 14 to 38 years old. So when I came up out of it, I guess I had an epiphany. I had a total epiphany. And the week prior to me leaving, and beat me pretty bad. And my daughter, now 30, she jumped in trying to stop him. And I literally saw David and literally daughter to push him off of me, and I got away free. From that day on, to tell you the truth, I laid in the bed trying to figure out how to kill him and get away with it. And what made me not was God. The voice was so profound. It was like, get up while he's not here, get something together and get out and don't look back. And I started questioning God. Like, what am I doing? I got to get all this stuff. This is my house and this is my stuff and this, da 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 da. And God said, I said, get what you can and get out. And I left basically with one outfit. My daughter had one outfit. And the start over was hard. In fact, I went back. That's how I got pregnant with the 16-year-old.
Oh, man.
And so I went back. And we go back 7 times before. And as she said, 20 times. I had 18 police reports that I just went and gathered. So if I had 18 police reports, just consider how many times I didn't call the police. And so I think my biggest thing was once my daughter jumped in and I could hear my mom's voice saying that baby is either going to kill her dad or something's going to happen bad where she's going to be involved. And I can remember it so plain. I was just like, I gotta go. I got to go. That was my why. At that point in time, the epiphany happened. I heard my mama, I heard God, and it was just like, okay, do what you got to do and leave. And that was basically what happened to me.
Yeah. So you heard the voice telling you it's safe right now. He's gone. It's time to go. And to leave those material things behind. I did the same thing. I packed my Honda Odyssey all the way to the rim. I put my babies in their car seats, and we were gone. I never looked back. Didn't take no furniture or nothing with me. Never went back. Not once. So once that moment, that epiphany you spoke of, and I was out and I did it safely, it was that was the break that I need. So I completely understand that. Right there. Ms. Satoria, what was helpful for you?
I was gonna say me, like, because I wanted to go back to like the original question, which like she said some amazing things, but I believe you wanted to know like more from a child's perspective. What could have helped them. So I wouldn't really say that I witnessed domestic violence between my parents, but because my mom was in and out of prison from when I was a baby all the way through high school. As a child, I had to like talk to guardian ad litems and things like that. And I witnessed my mom weaponize the system against my dad. And so we ended up being adopted by our aunt, who was our adopted aunt. So she wasn't even our biological aunt, right? And we lived in Virginia. My mom was incarcerated in prison at the time. My dad was in Maryland. He came to Virginia to get us, but they would not let him take us. And I did not find out until I was 30 years old that my dad got an apartment at that time. He was fully prepared to take us full time and be our father. And it really made me angry when I found that out, because as a child navigating growing up with a mother who was in and out of prison and then thinking that my father didn't want me, that's how I feel like I ended up in abusive relationships, because I was always looking for love in the wrong places. And then I also know that it was something that I was, I don't want to lose it. But like as a child, like I lost my identity. I lost my sense of self, to the point where I was making the wrong friends. I was hanging out in the wrong crowds because I was trying to figure out who I was as an individual, because I didn't have my mother to identify with because she was in and out of prison. I didn't have my father to identify with because he didn't get to raise me. So like, that's another reason why I'm fighting so hard in this situation for my children and their mental wellness, and making sure that they get through this situation the right way. Because even though my abuser is still currently abusing me, I am still advocating for his mental wellness. I am still advocating for him to go go get individual therapy and to get the help that he needs so he can be a father. Because even though he has abused me and is abusing me currently, there's going to come a time where our son is going to be like, well, who's my dad? What about my dad? And I can tell him, your dad did this, your dad did this, your dad did that. But none of that is going to matter to my son if he does not get to know who his dad is as an individual and as a person. And he may be the reason why his dad heals, because I am currently healing my mother. So I am navigating abuse. I am navigating all of my childhood trauma on top of healing my mother and trying to heal someone that's abusing me. So for those who help the abusers like understand what they're doing, that is very important. And I wish that we had something like that in Virginia. And if I don't know that if we do, but if we do, I would like more information on it. But that is important. All of it is important. But as a child who suffered from going through it, kids definitely know what's going on. They definitely have a voice. They definitely recollect what's happening. My kids are unpacking things in therapy that have made the therapist have to walk out of the room. Things that I didn't even realize that they heard or that they seen or that was a fond memory for them, because we're not talking about these things on a regular basis because I'm currently in it. So when we get into therapy and they're unpacking their traumas through the form of fun games at that, and then a fun game can trigger a child and that child starts crying, it's like, whoa, we definitely have a lot of work to do. And I want to also say that the system has literally been failing us forever. It failed my mom. It is attempting to fail me and my children right now. So that's why this conversation is so important.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Miss Alicia.
Yeah, so I do want to add that growing up in the abusive household, witnessing that, what I used to have to do is I used to run away. I used to go run and go to the church. And I used to go run and go to my neighbor's house. And going to my neighbor's house, I felt was a safe haven for me, because she was there with her kids, and it was just a whole different environment from my own home. So that's how I was able to feel like, well, I have a safe space, because I'm like, in my home was not safe. It didn't feel like it was peace there. It didn't feel like it was safe, because it's like you automatically knew when something was going to go down, and you're a child. And then it's like me feeling how that atmosphere just shift when my dad will come home, or how the atmosphere will shift when my uncle will come around. And it just was like, I can't be in this space. And I just sometimes I used to go hide in the basement for hours just to find myself disappearing. And I like when you said, if you don't really know what love is, you're going to look for love in all the wrong places, because that's what I started doing. Even though my dad was in the household, he was abusing my mom. So I connected abuse as a way of, oh, that's love, because my mom stayed for years and years. And when I got in my abusive relationship, I didn't leave right away. I'm like, what is going on? And I'm like, oh, you know what? Because I was defending myself and fighting back, I felt like, well, hey, we just both fighting here. That's still not healthy. It's just, that's how I grew up witnessing that happen. And as a child, that was my norm. That was normal to me. So even though it was unhealthy, that was healthy to me, because that's all I knew. Only but when I went to my neighbor's house and was in her environment with her and her kids, and it just, when you're a child and you witnessing stuff like that, a lot of times, like how you say, your children started unpacking stuff that you didn't even know they heard or knew. The kids hear everything, even behind those closed doors. The walls talking, and they're talking loud, very loud, because I will hear stuff and see stuff. And even though it's like they try to go in a whole nother room or be in another space, even when I was going through it with my kids and having them in another room, and what really shift my lens and the way I was seeing things is when I told my daughters, never let nobody talk to you any kind of way and put their hands on you. And when they said, well, mommy, why are you doing it?
Right.
It put me in a space like, mommy is in a space right now where she don't love herself, she don't know herself, and she don't know no better. and I have to work on my healing for me to change. And
Yeah.
it just, even though you tell your children one thing, it's the behavior that they see that they pick up. Because you could tell your child all day long, don't do this, don't do that, but they constantly seeing you do it. Oh, then mommy do it. I must can do it.
Mhm.
So it's really changing not just what we say, it's also changing the behavior and us taking these stands and advocating and being out there and showing the youth that we're out here making changes and we're not just talking about it, putting our feet to the ground, making it.
Yes. Yes, that was powerful. You have to, you can't just talk about it. You have to show through actions. And I had that same moment with my daughter. I told her, don't ever let anybody treat you like that. Don't ever let nobody do this. And she was just like, but you're doing it. So, sometimes our children, are the ones that wake us up, or they're the reasons why we wake up. And so we do really need to be careful, because our children are listening and they do see, even when we try to hide it. Okay, so from a perspective of being a mother, Ms. Andrea, as a mother losing a child, and I'm gonna say that for Martha too, as a mother, what was helpful for you when you lost your child?
I'm sorry, I go first.
Okay.
Losing a child, that was very much hard. I grieved for years on losing my daughter to cancer. I was mad at the world. I was mad at everything. I didn't want to believe in God anymore. I didn't think God even exists, because the whole time she was sick, I fasted, I prayed, I asked God not to take my child. And so when she passed away, it's like a part of me just left. Um, I went into depression. I was struggling with. I, I I really hated my ex husband, because I felt like that if he would have stuck and prayed with me, that my child would have been still living. And so I kind of pushed all the blame on him as well. It took me years and years and years to realize that even though that God took her away, he loved her too, just as much as I loved her. And that she was a gift from him. And I just started, looking at the healing process. I ended up going back to church. I ended up meeting this apostle, and she did a whole session on grieving. And when she did this session on grieving, it made me start to look at things kind of a little different. And I wanted to remember her on how she was, not to the smile she had, how she treated others. And so it got so to the point that God started lifting the hurt. So I started celebrating her in a different way, because it was one time that I would, when her birthday was hit, I would tear up my whole room, or I would just go and lock up somewhere, because I didn't know, it was just hurtful. I could get through Christmas, I could get through every holiday, but it was always her birthday that always would take me out. So I had to literally, like, I didn't go through no therapy session. I just went back to God and asked God to help me.
Mm-hmm.
Help me on to get over the grievances that I was going through, and losing a child. And that was like one of my darkest time, was this losing her. But it was just a lot of praying, a lot of just God healing me from the inside, healing my heart. So that's another reason why I call my organization I'm Not Broken.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Faith, you're having a strong spiritual foundation. I hear that is one of the biggest resources that is in place for survivors, is being able to rely on their faith and their church. Miss Andrea, as a mom of a daughter who lost her life as a result of domestic violence, because your daughter that was killed was actually not the one that was in the abusive relationship, correct? Miss Andrea, if you're talking, we can't hear you. Yeah, we can't hear you. We can see you talking, but we can't hear you. Okay, well, we're waiting for Miss Andrea to be able to reply to us. So now we've talked about some things that worked for you after the victimization. So what was? Oh, I'm sorry. There she goes,
Can you
Miss
hear me
Andrea.
now?
Yep, we can hear you. Yes.
Okay. Sorry,
Okay.
that was me switching, taking us off in the middle. I apologize.
No, you're
Yes,
fine.
you are correct. It was not her. She was not in the domestic violence situation. It was another family member. And so that's one of the things that I speak to as a parent that affects everyone in the family. You never know who that will be the recipient of the abuse as it continues to go on. The thing that helped me was just having a support system, the local support system of the shelter and the agency that was here. They were there from the day of, actually, the two counties. Um, and that was there. We actually had really good law enforcement that came through. The detective, he was very understanding, and the way he spoke to us and talked about things that were going on, down to the heck, the EMTs that came through, everybody was just really supportive. The detective came back and talked to us. But the support system from the agencies in the area that helped that first night with hotel rooms and, for that first week or so, just being available, and my friends and family. So I would say that my biggest piece of support was just friends and understanding and allowing me to um, vent or not vent, um, and being able to share my story when I was available. One of the things that I've made sure of was that there was enough already in the media, because I had people calling me from states like Ohio, Cincinnati,
Mm,
calling me because it was on the news there. It was that
mm,
because the manhunt took them all night. But even in the years past, I've met people that were in the train stations around, like they remember that night because they closed down all the train stations and bus stations, and um but in that, the just the support from the people, the community, was a big piece of it for me.
mhm,
Um, Even I'm not from here. I'm from another state, and just my friends from there that came over. So I would say support, just understanding where there's and allowing people to support and keeping the media out.
mhm,
That's why I was getting with that.
mhm,
I would not take any interviews with the media. I would
mhm,
not allow anyone to speak to the media. And it was literally, what, a year? It was like a year or two when I actually did my first event that
mhm,
I allowed myself to be interviewed by the media. So keeping the media out of it. And so that's why I'm a big advocate for not having discussions about what's going on when it's current, because
mhm.
nobody thinks about their family.
Right.
Everybody wants to talk about that person. But unless that family is putting it out there, I will not have conversations or in my clubhouse or in my groups about what's current going on about an abused victim,
Mhm,
because I remember standing in CMC Maine in that big old TV in the uh, room in the waiting room. And I remember when that news broadcast came on and my daughter's face was on
mhm,
that big old wall. And I keep that and I remind myself of that when I'm speaking to those that are new in their grief, of what that felt like. Um, so that's one of the things I carry with me to remind people there's somebody else. Yes, that was a bad thing that happened. Yes, it shouldn't have happened, but we really don't know the whole story, and we don't remember the people behind that are still grieving, that haven't even really started because
Right.
they're probably still in that denial space. And so that's just one of the things. But to me, I think just having support was a big thing. And then going back afterwards, um, I was actually at a conference, and I heard someone talking about making sure before, you keep telling your story and keep telling your story that it's from a place of healing. So I actually took a whole year off and hired a therapist, a transformational coach, um, and just did a whole lot of work on myself so that when I got on platforms like this, that I was speaking from a place of healing and not so much of my pain at that moment, that was deep rooted that I hadn't dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
So just support, education is one of the things that I've really dealt with. And so that was what helped me in the beginning.
Great. Those are all some powerful things. And what I did hear that was very common is just having the support of your community, having the support of your family, protecting your family in that moment. That really stood out to me with Miss Sylvia is that, we lost one child, but I do have other children here. And I'm sure the same thing for you, Miss Andrea, and, several others that, I have one child that's gone, but I do have these other children that I still have to tend to. And I have to make sure that they're okay and that they're getting the therapy that they need. So that was a common thread that I just heard among everybody, and just being aware of what agencies are in your community and the networking piece of, having that advocacy before you were a victim yourself and being able to go back to your networks. We talk about that a lot in my book, Earn Your Wings, a 30-day journey from survivor to advocate. We talk about, building your circle of trust and having those people that you can count on, that you can trust to go through the storm with you. But then also, taking advantage of networking and knowing what resources are out there, because you want to know those things. We want those things not in a crisis. We want to know these things in advance. So that's the whole purpose of this conversation. What are those things that victims will need, and how can we make sure that they have it? So my next question, because we are very deep into this. So my next question is, what made your healing journey traumatic? Was there anything that happened to you that made your healing journey more stressful, more traumatic? I've heard stories about, police officers not being empathetic and not being compassionate. I've heard about, going to court and feeling like your character is being destroyed. So was there anything that stood out in any of your journeys that, really was negatively impacted you? And then we're going to talk about, what did you need? So did anything stand out on your journeys that impacted you that you don't want to happen to anybody else, because it was another form of trauma for you?
Yes.
Yes, Miss Alyssa.
Mine was not having the support, and not having the support and not having people who are educated on domestic violence. So when you have people who have never really either delved into it, or either what goes on in the house stays in the house, nobody wants to touch that subject. It's a taboo subject. And so nobody wants to go get educated until it happens to them, or until it happens to a loved one. And then, okay, I've done this. So when I left, although the reason I kept going back was because my family was not supportive. And it wasn't the fact that they just weren't educated. So when I go, they would be like, "You're stupid." You would go back, you just da, da. Okay, I'm already being abused over here. I'm coming over here to be loved, appreciated, maybe understood, or maybe if you even don't understand me, love on me and love me through whatever I'm going through, but don't put me down. I'm already down. I need my family. And so I think that families need to be educated, as well as when you're coming out of the domestic violence. We talk about perpetrators, but us as victims, me being 14-year-old starting out, I don't even know how I got there. So going to the foundation of it, and as someone was talking about with the perpetrators, that's what I do. I dig into what happened in your childhood. What happened to you? And we have questions, or I have questions that I use this book that I have, and I have questions in there that I've taken out of there, and we go through some of those questions of what did you see as a child? What did you go through as a child? What made you do this? What made you do that? A lot of them went through the domestic violence, but they went through bullying. They went through different things. See, domestic violence just doesn't start at home. It can start with just bullying at school, and then you're trying to defend yourself, and then that becomes a habit, and then somebody that you're in a relationship does kind of the same thing, and then there we go. And so we just have so many multifaceted intertwined domestic abuse things that people don't even look at. I look at being cheated on as an emotional abusive thing. I look at the financial abuse. Some people don't even know what that is. Like, what is financial abuse? How can somebody abuse you financially? They can take your money. They can tell you how to spend it. They can not give you money. They can divvy it out when they want to give it. They can take it away when they want to take it away. And they can rule your money that you've worked for and you don't. So those are things that people don't look at. And then a lot of people look at the fact that, oh, domestic violence is just physical. They don't look at the aspect of it's verbal.
And usually starts off verbal.
Right. You can't go to jail just because you curse your wife out, unless you did something like I'm going to something to you or whatever. But, just different little things, the emotional and the psychological stuff, the narcissism part, the gaslighting part, the love bombing part, and as they were saying, like, we have to go through counseling because our kids get that. Like my oldest daughter is still going through things, and I have a piece of guilt in that, and I deal with that on a daily basis. Like, Lord, these are the things that my daughter saw, and I have to try to make better about them. So what I did was I educated myself, and then I went back to school, and then I began to put things in place and in position, like, of course, learning how to manage my own anger and the things that I was going through, and then making effective decision and effective choices, and making not putting emotions in every, and looking at things in a different perspective, and putting boundaries in place, and just knowing that no is a complete sentence enough for me. You don't have to put anything behind no. When I said no, I meant no. And sexual abuse, being sexually abused, and people think because I'm married, I'm not being sexually abused. If you said no to your husband, he should take it off you just like anybody else.
Exactly.
That's a form of rape, and I've been molested enough that I don't want my husband to be taking my whatever I have left of me, trying to give it to him freely with love, and he's taking it from me in aggression. That's not love. And so we just have to kind of talk to our kids about what love is. And I teach all the time. If you teach your children self-love from the beginning, they'll know what domestic violence is. They'll know what abuse is. And they'll be like, that ain't what my mama taught me. But when you see it in the household and it's not being addressed because, of course, fear factors and all kind of other things come into play, then these kids that with them, and either they become the abuser or they become abused.
Right. Oh, those are some serious statements, but they're factual statements. They're very factual. What is something else that y'all can share? Okay, I see hands. Alicia.
So what I want to share is that when I like how you said the word training. and not just in the families, but also in the workplace. Because I had got sexually assaulted at work. And by me getting sexually assaulted at work, at the time I was a program manager, and they just like, oh, you need to confront the person and tell him he's suspended from the program. And I'm like, you want me to go back and confront my abuser? And even though I did it, and with that, now I hear other people in the program talking about me, making fun of me, calling me all kinds of names. And I'm like, now I'm in a workplace and have to deal with abuse verbally. Just got sexually assaulted, and now I got to deal with verbal abuse. So, and with me going through all that, I wound up getting fired from my job because I felt like I was not mentally prepared to function to work. And by the workplace being uneducated on the effects that a victim goes through when it's like you trying to process everything. And even they told me, oh, well, you didn't seem like something was wrong because you still was carrying on like nothing happened. Because I still was at work. I still had to do my job, but I still was like, I went into, and then in the midst of it, I went to that little girl phase because it happened when I was a kid. So it's like I went all the way back to a child, and I'm at work and still putting on a fake face like nothing happened. So for them to even say, well, you still was functioning like you was fine, y'all were very uneducated.
Right.
And provide the trainings that these facilities need is so crucial, because not only am I going through this phase, and then they offered me a couple sessions of therapy, but I'm like, I needed more than the 4 you gave me. Well, the 3 you gave me. And it's really, you cannot put a time frame on when someone is healing and grieving when they've been victimized. So for them to put a time frame on it and say, well, if you don't come back to work within this amount of time, you fired. And I'm like, now I got to go through the process of, well, dang, now my income is being took from me. I already was violated. And now everything else is being taken from me. What am I to do? So it's really having that training, having that support, because it's like when you're going through that, it's like you really need to have a support system. And at that time, I didn't even know who to look into for support, because I'm like, I really didn't deal with it when I was young, when I was a child and got abused with sexual assault and domestic violence. So it's like I got all of this on my plate, on my head, on my heart. But when I went to therapy, that's when I realized I need to not just tackle this situation. I need to tackle something that happened when I was a child. So I had a therapist, and then I got a coach. And the coach really helped me to learn how to manage life skills. So I love the fact of having that therapist and that coach. And of course, I had to step all the way into my faith and believe that I can overcome this, and I'm stronger than my situation that happened.
Yeah. I agree with you. And I'm sorry that you went through that at work, because we have places that should be safe spaces. Our home should be safe spaces. Our job should be a safe space. Church should be a safe space. So when those different spaces don't have the education to be able to support employees or church members or something like that, when they don't have the education to be able to support someone that might be a victim of a crime, like in your workplace, then it causes for a very abusive and traumatic work environment. And that's, like you said, it's from lack of education, but then also confidentiality. Like, how did all these people even find out? So why was my story even released for it to be even talked about? That in itself is another form of trauma, and that's a crime. You're that was my right. That's something I came to you to talk to you about, and it's been let out to the whole company. That had to be horrifying. So just educating, employers and churches and hospitals, educating the nurses to be more compassionate, be more sensitive, and to be able to work with victims, after what you've been through. Would anybody else like to share? We're going to get one more example of, was there anything that happened traumatic that you want to avoid for other victims?
I think, Tiffany, the one thing that I'd like to share is, and this may sound interesting to some, the people that keep telling people that are going through trauma or grief, you're so strong, I don't know how you do it. You're just so strong. I don't know how you're standing. If I was you, I would have passed out. If I were you, I'd be in a crazy house. If I were you, those things are not uplifting. And we say it often, thinking that we're helping that person. But what you don't understand is, I know speaking for myself, I did not want to be standing. I did not want to keep going. I did not want to keep going to work. And by you continue to speak all the negative things that should be happening, made me think about that much even more. And I did not want to be the strong person. I was praying and surviving. You know, in the beginning, I'm praying, I'm surviving, and I'm living on the faith that I have. And that constant, you know, reminder of like it's supposed to make you feel good that you're being strong. And to me, it was just, I remember telling my girlfriend, I said, if one more person comes up to me and tell me how strong I am, I promise I'm gonna punch them in the throat. I said, "Oh,
I've
you
said
can't do
that
that
so many
because
times. I'm sure all of us have been told, girl, you are so strong. I'm pretty sure all of us have heard that. All of us, including.
yes.
So yeah.
But that was the one thing that just really caused a bad feeling for me, that just kept bringing things back. That to me, it ended up being traumatic because that was just the first thing people say, you're so strong. Instead of asking, how can I help you? Because once they say you're so strong, it's almost like they're giving
You don't need
themselves
help. Right.
permission not to hold space for you.
Exactly.
You're so strong. I don't have to hold space for you. I don't have to ask you, can I help you? I don't have to be in the space for you to call me and talk because you're so strong. Let me tell you my problems. And so that one, I think, is something that people need to really think about. You know, instead of saying it, maybe ask, how can I hold a space for you?
Right.
How can I listen to you? I think that would be, because assuming someone has already achieved healing when they're in the midst of pain is doing your person a disservice. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. So we have 15 minutes left. Let's talk about what can we do? What can we do? What are you doing right now in your cause, whether it's gun violence, mental health, domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse, child victim of domestic violence? What can we do? Or I want to back up. What is missing? What do you feel is missing? And then we'll talk about what we can do. So what do you feel is missing? Let's give one, and we're doing a lot. Let me say, I want us to all be able to comment. I don't want to stop you, but let's be mindful that we want everyone to be able to comment. How about that? Okay. So what, you got it. Miss Alyssa. You got it.
Education is the key. Understanding domestic violence, understanding what it is, what it entails, how the red flags of domestic violence, just knowing that part of it, it helps. But also across the board, like they say, every entity should be on the same, have the same voice, same sound. Everybody should be on the same page. And that's the problem. They're not. The police will come out. If you call back, both of y'all, I'm taking both of y'all to jail, or you leave, and that kind of stuff. So we need to get them educated. So when they do come out to help the victim, they know how to help the victim, because like they said, the perpetrator gets slapped on the hand. And I know this personally. for working at the courts. Oh, okay. You punched her in her eye. Oh, take 2 classes of domestic violence and you'll be okay. No, these people need extensive therapy because they just hit somebody and punched them in the eye and thought it was okay. Like, effective decision making. Oh, you stole a car. I'm just going to send you through one effective decision making class. How can that change anything if you're not educating them thoroughly and getting to the meat of it? Like what I do is ask, what have you gone through in your childhood that has you here? That's how we fix those perpetrators, because they get to dig deep into their issues and the things that maybe have caused them to get to where they are. And then they start looking at things in a different perspective. So I think mostly, not just mostly, but education is one way that we can start educating across the board.
So education around the different issues that we're talking about, but also educating those that are the perpetrators.
The perpetrators, victims, everybody involved should get
Right.
a taste of some type of education. The person, victim, they don't even know how they got in it and how they got out of it. And the perpetrator don't know how they got in it. And most times, just how am I going to get out of this situation?
Yes. Okay. Would somebody else like to offer? What is
Yes.
needed? What is
I would. Can you hear me? So I would just want to say wraparound services. So I believe housing, legal aid, therapy, and financial relief, not just emergency shelter and short-term safety planning. So I feel like we just need more wraparound services that truly help victims when they're going through it, so they don't have to figure it out on their own, because so many victims literally spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on lawyers, on hotels, and you're already trying to survive. And if you're trying to take care of 3 children like me, as of right now, I'm not getting any child support from my abuser as I'm going through this situation. I'm winning civil cases where I'm owed money to me, but I'm not getting paid this money, but so those wraparound services, more financial services are needed. And to know where the finances are actually going, because I even looked into some of the shelters, like tax paperwork and stuff like that, and to see all of that money that they're getting and to get the experience that I have received. I don't know, or there's too many victims, which that's a problem as well, because we should be putting it into this instead of continuing it.
Yes, very good. So victim compensation, I will be sharing with y'all some information about that, because we did get a grant to talk about victims compensation on the tour. So I actually was going to share that after this, but I'm glad you brought it up. Victims compensation is in effect in every state, and people don't know about it. So victims compensation definitely is something that people need to know about. And then also, I really like how you said, not just having short-term planning. So when you have victims that are going to the hospitals, the social workers, DSS, so forth and so on, that you're not just giving them that short-term plan. Well, this is what you can do in the next couple of weeks, but actually doing a long-term plan to make sure that person has what they need from the point of victimization, up to a certain point where they're self-sufficient. So love those ideas. Anyone else want to say what is needed? What is needed that wasn't maybe available?
Tiffany, I was going to say, because it wasn't available when we did it, but I just throw out my program that I do, the HELP program. And I say that because each thing that people have talked about, my program is actually the only consolidated program that offers what is domestic violence, how it affects the family, the emotional abuse, red flags, cooking classes, financial aid. I have someone come in and teach women's health. Everything that you guys have talked about is in my program. And so I think that we need to have more consolidated programs. Like, of course, I say mine because I'm supposed to, but just getting that out there, that we understand the holistic approach. And with that, because I bring in community leaders, like I've had people from the health department or OBGYN come in and talk about women's health. I have a financial advisor come in and we do budgeting. I have books that teach budgeting. So I think just having that in the community, especially I keep hearing her talking about the information not getting at the shelters. They may have one and not the other, but I think it's imperative that we take that holistic approach
Mm-hmm.
for that. So
Mm-hmm.
thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. Would anybody else like to share what right, Miss Sylvia, please share the movement that you're doing right now for the orange for Uptown Charlotte. I think this is a good place to talk about that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for everything that's been said. I am wholeheartedly in agreement with all of the other comments in terms of what we need and what we can do better. But what we're doing in Charlotte, June is Gun Violence Awareness Month. And the signature color for gun violence awareness is orange. And hence, I am representing for that particular initiative. So what we're doing here is we are have the Solidarity in Orange Skyline Initiative. You know, the skyline, the Empire State Building just lit up in the colors of the national champions for the basketball, right? For the college basketball. Our city skyline is beautiful. And it will light up for St. Patrick's Day. It will light up for the Heart Association. It will light up for the beginning of the basketball season. It lights up the colors, the signature colors, for a lot of different causes. For the last 2 or 3 years at least, there is an opportunity in June to request that they light up orange to recognize gun violence awareness. But those city leaders, the people who are in charge, the influencers, the decision makers, are not doing it. Those requests have gone unhonored. And so we are putting together a coalition of organizations here locally, regionally, and also organizations with the national presence to show that it's not just about the tragedy of gun violence, but also it's really a catalyst for identifying issues that we have in our community and identifying and acknowledging the work that's happening within our community to make things better. And so that's what we are about. We are working through relationship as opposed to the regular application process, again, which has not worked for the past couple of years at least. So we're working through relationship, through business partners who have interactions with the folks that are uptown Charlotte. And we're also, again, building a groundswell of coalition and support here so that we can show it's not just the Sam Stitt Foundation, or it's not just Earn Your Wings, or it's not just 1 or 2, but we have close to 50 organizations and expect that number to grow exponentially as we get closer and closer into that time. So be on the lookout for it. Would be great. Tiffany, I imagine that she would be able to share hashtags that we have out there. I would really love, because you guys are in Virginia, you're in Louisiana, you're in South Carolina. It would be really beautiful if you could also, within the contacts that we've already established, include your support for that, include your logos with that, include the name of your organization, shoot that back through the contact information that we have so that we can include your support, your backing for this initiative. We really want to show folks that it is really just about addressing these social disparities. It's about addressing the fact that people are out here boots on the ground doing the work. It's about addressing the fact that our lives are impacted, but things are and can improve. It's not just about we're out here with guns and we're taking lives. We got guns, take our guns. That is really not the focus of this year's campaign. We just really want to address and make sure that the city and uptown and the community and the individuals and the families know that we are seen, we're understood, and we're acknowledged in this process. So we are really excited and really pushing hard to build continued support for Light the Skyline Orange. It is the Solidarity in Orange Skyline Initiative. That's what we're pushing for, and that's what we fully expect to happen in the city of Charlotte, North Carolina, in the month of June.
Great. And we definitely are supporting you. I've sent you over all my logos.
Yes, you did.
For all of my businesses. So then to show that, I fully support you. So if anyone wants to support this initiative, please send over your logos to Miss Sylvia Stitt. I'll make sure that I tag her as well so that you can support that initiative. I want to get into a different state. JT, what needs to happen in South Carolina? What do you feel? What is one thing you feel needs to happen in South Carolina?
Continue these conversations. Be active, brave, and bold, and support those that are willing to come out and speak and share their stories. If we continue to do that, we can continue to progress and keep the momentum that we need to keep our arms around those that are affected and continue so that there are not so many people that feel like it's so much against them and they are trauma and the hurt already from what is going on, what's happening. Continue these conversations, continue to be on purpose and intentional with, getting the word out, speaking your truth, your testimony, and allowing your voice to be heard, because your voice is not silent. It needs to be heard. So we continue to meet momentum on conversations like these.
Thank you so much. Martha, what do you feel is one thing that is needed in Texas? Looks like she stepped away. Denier, as a child, survivor of gun violence, and thankfully your dad is still here, and that's such a blessing. What do you feel is needed? What do you feel that we need in Charlotte when it comes to gun violence?
So prior, I wrote that I found out that the Senate Bill 50 and House Bill 5 allows residents 18 years to carry and conceal without a permit. At 18, you're not even fully developed in my eyes. I don't think we developed till 25. And so I think that if we can, because we're allowed to go to Raleigh and propose bills, that we could propose to reverse this bill. And one, carry concealed, that means you have to go through a class to take a permit, let alone some of them are still in high school at 18. So that means that they're now allowed to get guns and go to high school. Doesn't make any sense to me. And then
and tell me those bills again.
So we have Senate Bill 50 and House Bill 5. They allow residents 18 years. And March 20th, 2025, it says it's passed. It's called the Freedom to Carry. North Carolina. I'm not really sure how much freedom is in being an 18-year-old with a gun and you still go to school.
Right.
And then I wrote that two things that I've recently done that are working well. CMPD does have a reach out program, which gives low-level felons a second chance. I'm very appreciative of that program because I was able to go in and talk to them about alternatives and what they can do with their lives. And I learned that they actually have passions, but they feel neglected within the world. And so within that, they go and create trouble, or they do this because either they're bored or we're not caring for them or we're not listening to them. And through that, I found out like these kids are so bright and they have things they want to do. And then second, they have a program called Reach that teaches young ladies how to do job applications, how to present themselves in the job interview. They go on retreats. So I think those two things, I was anti-CMPD, but once I found out that they have these programs and they have these things for the youth, and I've actually been a part of them and been able to work with them, that's pro what's going well. But I do think that we should get on the Senate bill and these House bills and just figure out what's going on with our age restrictions when it comes to guns.
Yeah.
And weapons.
Yeah, my son told me about that bill, and I was just like, I don't believe that. I didn't believe him because I'm like, who passed this bill to let an 18-year-old, go and purchase a gun without a permit? Who thought that was a good thing? And it passed. I didn't believe it. So
freedom to carry.
Right. 18 years old. And I agree with you. At 18, you your mind is still developing. You're still figuring out who you are. And having a gun added to that is just, it's ridiculous. It really is. I don't see how that's going, and it's not going to reduce crime. We're going to see the crime rates go up. In my opinion, but we'll see. Okay. But anybody else? So it's 7:00. What I would like is for each of you basically to share a takeaway, because this is going to be ongoing conversations. And so for you, what has been helpful in this conversation for you? Because we want to make sure that those that are listening which we have, the people have been listening all evening. So thank y'all. That for people that are listening, what is the takeaway? What do you want people to take away from this conversation when it comes to reducing crime in our communities, or what they can do or not do? And I'm going to go in order, if y'all don't mind, because that way I'll make sure we get everybody. So I have excuse me, Denier.
One takeaway that I just wrote down was don't lose your voice, use your voice. I think everyone here is like speaking up loud for what they are passionate and believe in. And if we continue to do that and continue to show up in these spaces, that is my takeaway from here. Fighting, I hear the passion in everyone's voice for what they believe in. And so I have taken that away from our conversation today. It's just to continue to be the change I wish to see in the world, and to continue to heal, to continue to love, and to continue to do the work.
Right. Yes. Yes. Continue to be the change that you want. Yeah. Got it. Alicia, what's the takeaway?
So one of them is the education. Continue to advocate for yourself. Continue to get the education, the training that you need, and stop looking outward for love. Look inward for love. Where you be able to healing, work for you by looking inward. When you're looking for love in all the wrong places, you're gonna find it, and it's not going to be healthy. So as you start looking inward, and what can I do for myself to start my healing? What can I do for me? And start loving me, and start connecting around like-minded individuals as well for that support. So the education part, continue to get education and training that you would need, the support you need, and loving on yourself for your healing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you. Before I go to the next person, when you answer this question, the takeaway, please include maybe like what Denier said about us getting on to the Senate and changing that. So if you can include that in your takeaway, this is what we can do with your takeaway, if you don't mind. Emerald.
My takeaway is we're speaking specifically on the gun violence, correct?
No, anything. Your takeaway, if your experience.
Of my experience and what I've heard from these other storytellers and community activists, is that it's not just you. It's not just you going through something. When I went through my traumatic experience, I thought that it was the worst thing in the world. Although it's on a different layer with others, they got stuff going on too. So we as a community having these conversations, we can't just have them. We have to be able to understand and comprehend each other. That it's not just you going through something. And again, I think I've said this in another discussion, it's not always the message, it's the messenger. So sometimes, like, I get why we have some who would prefer not to work with the perpetrators versus someone who would. I get it from each side of it, because I've been that person who wants to help my perpetrator, but when it got to a point where I knew it was detrimental to my health, I had to let that go. And I can't help them if I can't help myself. And sometimes that's stepping away. So I would like for people to comprehend, and this goes hand in hand with some of these gun violences, because like she said, what is an 18-year-old gonna do with, they barely know what to do with themselves, let alone a gun. Mm-hmm. It's things out here in this world that we have bigger conversations that we should be having to help these children. That now my thing is going off. I think I got lost.
Thank you, Emerald. Thank you so much. Miss Alyssa, what is your takeaway, and include what's needed?
Okay, so I think change is necessary. Education, Change is necessary in the judicial systems as well as all the way down. We need education for sure. We need to stop victimizing the victims, stop asking so many questions. And as I said earlier, don't ask why they stay, don't ask why they keep going back. Ask what you can do to help, because really that's what they really want. If you say, I have a helping hand, most times they will try to, go through that part of it. And even if it's hard for them, they're doing it because somebody else is helping.
Yes, yes. Miss Martha, what is your takeaway and what is needed?
My takeaway is that we need to have more resources. I'm in the city of Killeen, and there is no resources out here. You barely even hear them speak about domestic violence. So I keep doing the community conversation, keep getting involved. I would like for it to be more shelters and more help, and that's the reason why I got into the legal business, because I wanted to be able to, like, if they need resources for divorces, or they need resources on, how to get through certain things for their legal work, dealing with their marriages, or how property or whatever. So we just need more in Texas.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry, I went away from my camera. Who do I have next? So, Miss Andrea, what is your what is your takeaway and what is needed?
So, excuse me, my takeaway is to those that are out there that may be listening and one trying to decide how this affects them, whether they're trying to decide to leave or trying to decide to stay. One, whatever you're feeling, it's okay. It's your feelings. You lived it. It's okay. The question is that where you want to stay in those feelings? And to let people know that it is possible to turn your harm into harmony, that there's people willing to help you. Just continue to find that space and those people that are safe for you. If you get a no, then keep moving. But there's somebody there. And so I think, as even for the rest of my takeaway, that I think that message needs to be continued to be given to more people. Instead of trying to tell them how they should feel, allow them to understand that whatever it is that they're feeling, it's okay. If you're elated, if you're mad, if you're sad, if you're angry, it's your feelings. So now let's talk about what that looks like for you and how we can get you to where you want to be. Thank you.
Yes. Do not invalidate another person's story. That's not for you to do. We were talking about that last night too. So yes, thank you for that. Miss Sylvia, what is your main takeaway and what do we need to do?
My main takeaway is don't isolate, consolidate. And I say that because so many of the stories had a similar thread. There was a common thread that ran through the things that were happening that were traumatic, and also the things that were needed and the things that would help. So my takeaway is to look for opportunities to find others that you can partner with. You don't have to go through any of this alone as an individual or an organization, for people who are out there doing the work. So look for partners based on action, advocacy, and service. So that's my biggest takeaway.
Yes. Action. Don't just talk about it. Be about it. Yeah. Yes. JT, your takeaway and what is needed. And as always, I love for JT to take us to close us out. So JT, your takeaway and what is needed.
I got something from everybody on the panel tonight. When Miss Emerald first spoke, it reminded me that it's important to be intentional and transparent when your love is kind, but the patience in love is very important. And for the person to understand that, I may not went through what you went through, but I'm here standing in the gap for you. And you're not alone. And sometimes showing the action that you're not alone is very important. What is needed, again, continued movement like what we have going on here in tour and in conversation. because there's somebody out there in the audience that needed to hear tonight. We have actively people that are actively going through these situations, and you know, it's not Lifetime, it's not BET. You have to go to an app. These are real life stories and real life people. And on this tour, especially in South Carolina, love, healing, and patience is going to be a focal point, especially in South Carolina, and continuing to find resolution in ways that we can help each other continue the process of trying to get into a better space in healing and understanding that we need to find ways to cope with what has happened and what is happening, because you don't necessarily get over it, but finding the ways to deal with it and the people that God placed in your life in order to get you to that point. The women on this panel tonight, y'all strong people, and I say that from a faith base. I'm speaking that strength and that faith, and not being redundant and just saying, "Oh, God got you," but God placed some people in your path that are going to keep you bonded and uplifted and unified, and we walk together in healing and in the space of pouring love in other, so that we can get to a space to where there are more smiles than hurt, and that the love that is supposed to exist all over this world, it starts here in this room. And what happened in this house tonight, we're going to manifest it all over the land.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So this is the first of many community conversation panels that we're going to be having on the tour. What happens after this is I'm going to go in my notes. I'm going to try to summarize as much as I can, put some action points and so forth. And then I'm going to send it out to our panelists tonight for them to sign off on it, because the hope is that we are going to come up with a running document of what's working, what's missing, what's needed, and that we're going to have this document to be able to present to our states to say, okay, these are survivors. Right now, we have 52 partners right now, and not even just that, but even people who are a part of the tour who are not, officially a partner, right? So 52 voices, and this is only April. So imagine by December how many voices will have shared their story on this platform. So we want to be able to take all of the survivor feedback, because we are the best teachers, and have something concrete that we can be able to present as a united front. So that is the hope, that is the mission, that is the plan. So thank you everybody for joining us tonight, for listening, for offering your support, for showing your support, for putting the comments in of what you think, your answers to the questions, all of those things. Thank you. We appreciate you for doing that. I appreciate all of the panelists. I'm sure that we will be seeing them again. And please follow us to the Earn Your Wings tour on all platforms. And please, please, please do what you can in your community. Speak up. Don't stay silent. Speak up. If you're not a victim yourself, then unfortunately, we probably know somebody that is. Learn, educate yourself, do what you can in your community, be active in your community, because, if we're not, I think it was Denier, I believe, saying, we can't we can't bring about change if we're not doing anything. We have to have action. We have to do something. We can't just talk about it. We have to do something. So thank you everyone for being a part of this conversation. And I hope that this was as inspirational and uplifting for you all as it was for me. And I truly appreciate all of you for giving us your time and your expertise. So thank you so much. JT, tell everybody where they can find you. You're on mute. Uh-oh. No.
Yeah, James Thompson on Facebook. Just hit me up there, and that's where you can find me. We keep it short and sweet.
Thank you. Miss Sylvia, tell everyone how they can find you.
Facebook, Sylvia Stitt Smith on Facebook.
Thank you. And how can they find Sam Stitt's foundation?
samstittfoundation.org.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ms. Andrea, tell everybody how they can find you and your organization. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Miss Martha, share how we can find you and your organization.
Yes, I'm on Facebook as Martha Young. Instagram is Francie Payne, and TikTok Martha Young.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Denier, please tell everyone how they can find you.
You can find me on Instagram at Near Perfection. That's NEER Perfection. And Facebook, you can find me at Denier Davis.
Thank you so much. Miss Alicia, how can everybody find you in memorable moments?
Best place to find me is Facebook.
Sorry. Go ahead, Alyssa, go ahead.
The best place to find me is Facebook at Elissa B, but I also have other platforms on Facebook, so they'll be able to find me there. They'll be able to find me on Instagram at Diva247. That's Diva with an attitude 247. And of course, Lotus Worldwide, Coach Elissa BEE is what I go by. So if you want to call me, if I say Elissa B, it's probably got the EE at the end. I'm on all major platforms, X, and all the other ones, LinkedIn. So you can find me everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you. Miss Leisha, how can everybody find you?
You can find me on Instagram at aligning with Lee with _Coach Lee, as well as on YouTube. Aligning with Lee. Memorable Moments is on Instagram as well.
Thank you so much. Ms. Emerald, how can everybody find you?
On Facebook, it's Emerald Elamine. That's EL-AM, like Mary, IN, like Nancy. On Instagram, it's Carolina Honeydew, all one word, all lowercase is what's preferred. But you can find me any way you like if you use capital letters.
Y'all can tell she's an artist. Live about her stuff. Okay. Thank you, everyone. So please follow the Earn Your Wings tour on all platforms. Have a great night.